My name is Kayode Ladende, sitting in for Kedera Ahmed. In this edition of Pivotal, we focus on the surge in separatist agitation in Nigeria. While the voice of agitations around Biafra may have been the loudest, most persistent, and visible, there are separatist agitations in virtually every area in the country. Among the Yorubas, for instance, there has been a direct call for Oduduwa Republic. In the north, there are demands for Arewa Republic. In the center of the country, known as the Middle Belt, voices have also been raised for a country independent of the entity called Nigeria. Interestingly, in the Niger Delta, the region which produces the bulk of the oil, which accounts for the bulk of Nigeria dollar earnings, the focus for activists has largely been an agitation for a larger share of the region's oil revenue. Overall, the debate on the sustainability of the Nigerian state has moved from the fringe to mainstream. These secessionist movements across the country are at loggerheads with the federal government, which has a history of silencing secessionist movements through the use of force. There are those who believe that renegotiating Nigeria's unity is required to stop the country torn apart. Today on Pivotal, I'm being joined by Professor Pat Utomi, the founder of Center for Value in Leadership and the African Democratic Congress ADC, and also Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed, the Director of Publicity and Advocacy of the Northern Elders Forum, to discuss the secession and the way forward.
Thank you.
Let me start with you, Professor Pat. From what we have seen so far, some have expressed divergent opinions, different contradictions. For some, it's a bargaining chip to have access to power. For some, maybe it's a genuine call for self-determination. And for some, they just want a fair deal. Or how do you perceive these old agitations, in your own opinion?
Well, really, honestly, the way that I read this and I've read for a long time, people find different ways of expressing their dissatisfaction with how the system is functioning. And at the heart of it, at the core of it, is the failure of leadership. It is the nature of state capture, in which political process corrupts the governmental processes almost such that it is inclined towards the material interests of those who capture the state, who gain political power. And so we don't have the system reflect enough the needs of the people. And because this is so, people find different ways of expressing themselves. Of course, you will have opportunities of different kinds to do different things. A great British historian, Neil Ferguson, writing about the making of the US Constitution, describes it as perhaps the greatest effort at institution building in history. And sometimes you can say, how can somebody say something so like boo? But the truth of the matter is that if you look at how the framers of the American Constitution suggests, for example, that people should have the right to feel, to express themselves, that they can leave the union. You wonder if they were not so foresighted. It's not because they wanted people to leave the union. It's because they understood that if people had the right to say we can leave this union, whoever the political actors are that are in power will act in a manner that reflects the interest of everybody. The same logic you can see in the electoral college system, where the rights of even minority peoples are protected. The Nigerian Constitution does a pretty bad job of those kinds of thinking. And because of it, when people are frustrated, they can't express it.
Okay. Now, let me quickly get Dr. Baba Ahmed's thought on that. Do you agree with what Prof has just said?
I think that what Professor Utomi did is very helpful. It sets a historical background and context for two key issues. One is the principle of self-determination, which is almost as human as breathing. Man is a political animal. Freedom is vital to men and communities. And you must never design a system that forecloses key options like the right of communities to decide whether they want to be part of any association. it's also a basic foundation of the democratic system. Even under colonialism, colonialists came continuously look for ways in which they can address the issues of diversity in Nigeria. The democratic system is fundamentally based on the willingness of citizens to submit to authorities that they feel they are part of. Our country federal system is designed around the idea that diversity must be managed and be managed well. If you fail to manage diversity, pluralism, inclusiveness, alienation, either by individuals or groups, then you actually threaten a country, you threaten every nation. Now, those are principles. As far as Nigeria is concerned, the real problem has been that, and I agree with Professor Otomi here, what we've witnessed, which is in the last few years, maybe the last decade, has been an abuse of the responsibility of leadership to address diversity, to manage it in such a way that it builds a country rather than breaks down a country. That's the first failure of leadership. It is a fundamental responsibility of politicians to manage diversity. If you fail to manage diversity, you get all this. There's a wide spectrum of opinion between those who think we're not being treated fairly, we don't belong, we don't feel we're part of this country, to those who just want out. We don't want a part of this country, we want to leave. So this huge spectrum, somewhere in between, you're likely to find the hand of a state which has been inept or actually complicit in abusing trust and confidence of citizens in states like Nigeria. And so I think that what we are dealing with here is, where do you strike a balance that addresses grievances that are genuine, that can be managed in the context of a nation that continues to exist, so that any part of the country feeling the only solution to its problems is to leave the country.
Okay,
and
Doctor,
one way.
let's look at how government is handling this issue from the very, very recent one, the Bohos episode, the Nnamdi Kanu. Your assessment of how government is handling this?
Well, as far as the Kanu and Bohos case, I consider these things as matters of law and order. I think both individuals live in a country of laws. We are a nation of laws. If there are broken laws of the country, they should be processed through the laws of the country, through the judicial process. They should receive fair trial. If the state feels that they have broken any laws, they should be tracked and processed through a fair process. That's how I feel about it. The fact that we are trying to put serious political coloration and trying to politicize this is very dangerous for the country. We've already done enough damage with politicians hiding behind individuals who feel that they can actually capitalize on genuine sentiments about marginalization, about alienation, about injustice, which has always existed in this country and which will always continue to exist in this country. Those individuals, there are boundaries you cannot cross and you should not cross. This is my view about this. If you do cross them, then the laws of the land should be asked to judge whether you've actually broken any law. Let
me quickly get Prof on this. Looking at what Dr. Ahmed had said, I also like to get your take. And in addition to that, let's look at, there are fears that arresting leaders of these movements may result into further escalation, and where we can have the issues of Mohammed Yusuf and Boko Haram, if you can remember. So how best do you think this should be handled, Prof?
Again, it comes back to the same question of the immaturity of the political class. There's a subject that I give plenty of play to these days, and trying to explain it. There was a myth generated by the media back in the 70s called the Kaduna Mafia. And I've tried to explain many times that what simply was happening in Nigeria. And I had the good fortune of writing a PhD thesis and getting to become very close to many of the people that are today called the whatever, that Super Pansec, Kaduna Mafia, or that or that. They were simply a group of thoughtful people who lived in Kaduna within a certain 2 square kilometers area, and a group of thoughtful people who lived mainly in Victoria Island and Ikoyi in Lagos. And issues come up in Nigeria, and they chat amongst each other in Kaduna, and the Lagos guys call the Kaduna guys, and they talk, and they find reasonable resolutions to these things. And Nigeria moves on. Most times, we don't even know what has gone on there to resolve things for the country to just keep going. Now, what has happened to us tragically is that such groups of thoughtful people stop being available and stop being able to talk to one another. And it now seems that the way you resolve a problem in Nigeria is to become obnoxious. The more obnoxious you become, the more you are then given a play. Oh, sorry, these guys are threatening heaven and earth. Okay, let's listen to them. Let's give them something. This kind of bricksmanship has brought Nigeria to where we are. So people now feel that the only way they can get a hearing is to get obnoxious. And that is what has led us to this sorry past. We need elites who are clear-minded, so that I can pick up a phone and call Dr. Baba Ahmed and call Usman Bugaji and call whoever, and we call somebody in Port Harcourt, and we sort these snafus out, and we just keep moving. But this political class has not had the savvy, has not had the seriousness of purpose beyond what position can I be put in to share what money my followers get, this, get that. Okay. And that's why Nigeria is in this place.
Prof, we're going to deal more on that, because you've touched some of the things that the political class is doing wrongly, but we are going to be very, very pragmatic to look at how to handle situations where we've had them, resulting to use of weapons and the rest. Let's look at how these agitations have resulted into. We have what people call the ESN in the Southeast, and we also have some situations where people have also seen weapons with some of these agitators. So how do you think government should handle this without, probably if you're saying that it should not use brute, what
you see, again, it's part of the fundamental structural problems and constitutional problems that we have. The policing function, everywhere it works well, in my opinion, in the world, is a local function. Okay, I'll give an example. I lived in a college town in America. It's called Bloomington, Indiana. The university in that town has its own police force who carry guns and everything. The city of Bloomington has its own police force, appropriately armed and everything. The county has its own police force. The state has its own state troopers, and so on and so forth. Now, when I was growing up, I grew up mainly in northern Nigeria, Kaduna, Maiduguri, Jos, Kano, where I started school in 1960, Kuzo, and we had native authority police in those days. It is the so-called reaction to the abuse of the native authority police that leads to this, no, federal policing is the only way. Doesn't make sense. In the United States, local police in the South was used to abuse the rights of Black people. What happened as their system evolved was that after the Civil Rights Acts and all of those, if an issue involves a civil right, it's immediately kicked up and the FBI gets involved. Okay. But to say that policing, which is more effective as a local function, should reside in Abuja, where an IG who doesn't know what is hurting you in
so that takes us to the issue of devolution of power.
Sorry?
That takes us to the devolution of power, the state policing.
Yes, absolutely. That's it.
I'm very much interested in this aspect you have gone into. And let me quickly get Dr. There seems to be some kind of confusion on what is secession and what is devolution of power. Can you help us bring out this dichotomy, and probably some of these agitators will get it correctly?
My understanding of secession is just an outright. People feel we don't want to be part of this country. We have grievances. We believe that these grievances cannot be resolved in the context of Nigeria, and therefore we want out. So that's what I understand by secession.
So with devolution of power solve it, maybe I should use the buzzword.
Devolution of power devolution of power will address a huge part of the resentments and the frustrations that give rise to these sort of things. However, you always have people who think no matter what you do, the only way they become politically relevant is by saying we don't want to be part of this country. Now, what is the question to ask here is, what is it that gives these marginal people, that we want out people? We don't want anything else but want. What is it that gives them the opportunity to move to the center stage? And it is poor governance, failure to appreciate how to manage the diversity, failure to address issues like local policing, giving local communities power to decide how their lives should run, giving them power to decide how resources can be generated and used, creating an environment where they feel they feel both local and Nigerian. This is vital. You need Nigerians who feel that they are relevant to governance, but they are also Nigerians. So restructuring the country, giving huge responsibilities down to local communities is vital to do this, so that they deal with this issue. And it's not everything that has to be decided by Abuja. The threat with the way we run things now is you put so much power and responsibility in the center. And when things go wrong, people have nowhere else to go to or to blame but the center.
Let me go back to Prof. There's a bit of confusion here again. We've seen some of these agitators, especially the IPOP, saying that they don't even have trust in the political class in the Southeast. So why the governors are in unison to say that let's have a devolution of power, let's have more powers to the federating unit. But this set of IPOP agitators even believe that they have to start their own government. Do you think the way they are asking for secession, there is a correlation to the idea of restructuring?
Well, first of all, I think that we have to understand the problem of trust is Nigeria writ large. The Nigerian people have no confidence in the Nigerian political class, let's be honest. I was on a Lagos Business School, a conference on how Nigeria moves forward a few days ago. And a senior advocate of Nigeria of some repute said, look, we need to just cut and get rid of every one of these political actors now. Just get rid of the whole class and start afresh. And I can imagine the frustration that leads to that kind of conclusion, because the basic thing about public life is trust. And so this trust of public officials, of politicians, is at a very low ebb currently in Nigeria because of the class of politicians who have dominated our country for a while. It's not just in the Southeast, it's across the country. But there is an even deeper problem in engaging with the Southeast, in the sense that many of the people who are agitators in the Southeast think that the political class in the Southeast is an external imposition on them. Because of this, again, central nature of Nigerian politics, they see them as agents of some characters far, far away from them who can feel their pain. So the trust factor is even deeper in a place like the Southeast. And so that is a challenge that makes the conversation more difficult. But it can be managed. First of all, part of my call is that more serious-minded people should step into the arena, and that part of our problem is the complicit middle. I say the middle class, the educated groups, the people who are not hustling for power for personal reasons rather than to get society better, are allowing themselves to become too marginal. They should speak up like Dr. Baba Ahmed is speaking up, like Dr. Bugaje is speaking up, like Professor Ekoyin Salajayi was speaking up on this program. And they should become active in saying, this nonsense can't go on anymore. Okay. That way, we can take our country back and work for the people of the country ordinary people, middle class people, to get the country truly running.
Okay, Prof, and let's continue from where you just dropped that. Dr. Ahmed, so taking it from where you stopped, how do we ensure equity and fairness? I think from what you're saying now, every ethnic nationality is involved, crying about the issue of marginalization, including the Fulanis, the Jukuns. Everybody seems to be crying out on this issue of marginalization. How do we ensure equity and justice?
First, by genuinely trying to find out why so many Nigerians feel alienated and being treated unfairly. It's important. It is part of the responsibility of the leader to listen and find out why, for instance, in the Southeast, the demand for the total lack of faith in leadership is not just about Abuja, and Professor Pat is correct here. In the Southeast, the reason why political leaders are so thin on the ground is that the community feels that they didn't vote for them. They are not their people, and they don't represent their interests. There's something fundamentally wrong about the political leadership that cannot inspire confidence, even enough confidence to say, can we complain to you that we have a problem? And those problems are go across the whole country. When you have an administration like we have now, that just simply locks out its problem. It says, look, we don't want to hear about restructuring because National Assembly is dealing with constitutional amendments. We don't want to hear about grievances and agitations because that is just troublemakers. We don't want to hear about communities saying we don't feel we belong. You have a president who says he got 5% from a whole part of the country, and in a way, as if he doesn't owe that part of that country anything. Those are not the kind of things that make for a stable and peaceful nation. You need to put Nigeria on the table and actually understand what is going on. Why is it that we've never had this level?
National dialogue?
Yes, national dialogue.
Okay.
Talking like Professor Utomi said, get Nigerians from all parts of the country to talk to each other and try to see if we can solve this problem. If the government is not going to be able to provide a platform or an opportunity to do this, there's nothing stopping us from doing it ourselves. We can talk to each other. And we can influence change.
From doing that.
What is failing is exactly what he said. Where is the Nigerian elite? Where are those Nigerians who believe that this country is worth saving? Okay. Where are those people who believe that Nigeria is actually a great country and can be even greater? Where are those people with responsibility? Why are we abandoning the country to this kind of politicians who are running the country aground?
This is a question that we'll put out there for Nigerians to answer. But on a final note, Prof, is it too late?
At all, it isn't late. I give example of Brazil all the time. You saw Brazil become a basket case literal, and we saw Brazil come back. I think it's possible for Nigeria to come back. It just takes concerned, committed Nigerians to work at it.
Thank you so much. And I will also do 60 seconds for Dr. Baba Ahmed.
It's not too late. And we must never ever think that it is too late. We owe the next generation the responsibility, we owe them the duty to keep the flag flying. This country was built at great pain. It took a lot to build this country. It's a resilient country. It's a strong country. It can be salvaged. We should not give up. We are not giving up. And there are enough people, goodwill and commitment to the country to actually pull it over. It is not over. And we must never allow the naysayers, the people who want to say break it up, the people who want to say let's fight if we can't have our way, we must never give them the chance to decide what happens to this country.
So thank you very much, Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed, for your insight and for still believing in Nigeria. So much for us, the younger generation, to believe that it is not too late. And of course, Professor Patu told me you have never given up, and we hope that we will join you in that train to still believe in Nigeria. Thank you for your time.